Hey everyone, Kenny here from RPM Online. It's a lovely day here in sunny South Wales, and it's my absolute pleasure to say that I'm sitting down and chatting today with the absolute comedy legend, Mr. Nigel Planer. On behalf of RPM Online, Nigel, we'd like to thank you so much for coming on and having a chat.
Hello, hello.
We've got lots to talk about, so I know you're a busy man. So what I'll do, I'll shut up with the introduction and I'll get on with what we need to talk about. So at the moment, you've got a book that's coming out. Is it coming out or is it out yet, Nigel?
You can pre-order it. It's coming out on July the 5th. It's
Okay.
called Jeremiah Bourne in Time,
hmm
and it's a kind of it's a new take on time travel. It's a guy. It's all set in the same house, so you travel in time, but not place. So
Okay.
you have to be careful. It's like based on that premise you have. I don't know if you've ever experienced it. You're walking down the street and you imagine something old hits you and you
Oh yeah.
imagine yourself back there. And it's kind of an experience like that for him
Okay.
because of inherited memory, genetic inherited memory. So people are traveling using like birds fly south. How do they know to fly south, or
Mm.
how do they know to build a nest? You can bring up a bird not in a nest and it'll build its perfect nest.
Yeah, that's right.
So where's that memory? So the time travels like that, and it's set in 1910 with a load of eugenic scientists and weird characters,
Okay.
and 2019 and 2123 after the digital meltdowns.
Ah, wow.
Because in the future, I've imagined that there's been some major digital meltdowns and we've lost all of our data.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I often
Um,
worry about that because I'm
yeah,
obviously I'm
exactly.
I'm a bit of a physical media type of guy still.
Yeah,
And I always say, well, it's not going to be much of a problem for me if the internet goes down because I've got all my records, I've got all my stuff.
yeah. And I've got little notebooks.
Yeah.
I've got stuff written down in
So
notebooks.
you're proper old school then, like me.
Yeah, but people with memories, I reckon. I mean, I can't remember. I used to remember, bank account numbers, phone numbers, lots and lots of numbers.
Mm, yeah,
I can't remember any of them now. You just click a button, don't you, and get your.
exactly.
And so I imagined a future where we've had some meltdowns, and so people who can remember things, super memorizers, are the ones in charge. They're the people with the power.
So do you think that could be someone maybe on the autistic spectrum because they've got that kind of gift, some of them?
I suppose so. Could be. They're inheriting the future, aren't they? Anyway,
Mm,
the way it's going. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I've had your lovely agent sent over the press release. So already you've had some really good testimonies from some well-known people such as Ben Elton and Miriam Margolyes. Everybody loves Miriam, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
They've
is
been really good. I've had some great. I wasn't expecting as good a response as I've got actually from there.
cool.
You know,
So it's coming out in July.
that's right.
Um, when or how will we be able to buy it, Nigel? Will it be in actual bookstores or?
It'll be in bookstores, but for the meantime, the place I always tell people to go, rather than going straight to Amazon, which is what most of us have been doing,
Hmm,
is to go to something called Hive. I
okay.
don't know if you've heard of that. If you go to Hive Books,
Hmm,
you can order online, same as Amazon, but they have arrangements with your local bookshops.
okay.
There's another one called bookshop.org,
hmm
but Hive's the one that actually has Jeremiah Bourne in Time at the moment.
Oh, fab. Okay.
So if you put me in on Hive,
hmm
and you can link up to a local bookshop, because those are really need support at the moment. What with the
Absolutely.
the sort of complete imperial uh, um, invasion that we've had from
Mm,
Amazon.
mm.
So if you want to support local bookshop, it's a good idea to go to Hive.
Yeah, well, talking about my daughter again, Pippa, she's a massive reader. She's got stacks and stacks of books. So
Yeah.
no doubt she knows all about these websites that you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah, that's
fab.
great. It's called, and the publisher's called Unbound. So another
Okay,
place you can buy it is to go to Unbound's website, but it's a pledging website. So there's
okay,
lots of rewards as well if you want. In fact, the rewards that I set up with this book were everything I had in my cupboard. So there was tons of Bad News T-shirts,
wow.
Neil memorabilia, CDs, Young Ones stuff.
Wow.
That's all been taken.
Oh, is
There's
it?
not all.
Okay.
There's another load. When I do the second book, I'll release the next lot. Yeah,
I'll make sure I get a pledge in then.
yeah, yeah.
So with regards to the influences for the book, would you say it's kind of in the kind of like Terry Pratchett kind of realm? Would you compare it to that?
Yeah, in fact, we've got a lovely quote on the back from Rihanna Cratchit, his daughter.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's Pratchett because I did all the, not all the, but I did, God knows, nearly 20 of the audiobooks, unabridged audiobooks of Terry Pratchett's Discworld
Okay.
book. So I felt he was a sort of role model, but it's also more, he's in the fantasy area, I'm more in the kind of Blackadder area.
Okay.
It's comedy. It's a comedy, um, but with some quite serious true history, and actually the science in it is obviously it's science fiction. So I've taken ideas further than is possible, but the science and the history I kind of like when it's nearly possible or when the facts are pretty accurate. So I did a lot of research,
Okay.
and that I like that in the way that Blackadder, although it was a big wacky comedy show, or
Mm,
even Upstart Crow.
mm.
Actually, Upstart Crow teach you a lot about Shakespearean England because it's
Yeah.
pretty accurate stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's pretty accurate as well.
Yeah, they've got to do their research, haven't they?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say cross between Terry Pratchett and Blackadder.
Oh, cool. Well, that's a pretty good introduction to the book, I would say. So with regards to, I'm looking through the press release again now, and there's memories via a biscuit tin, and there's a nudist and a chatty parrot. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Have you still got the old biscuit tin thing in there? I tried to get that line crossed out.
Ah, really? Yeah, it is in there. Yeah.
Because he does open a biscuit tin.
Okay.
That's how he finds some old photos, and then that's his first experience. But it's just by chance. And the first thing people ask when you talk about a time travel story is, oh, what's the mechanism? Is it a booth? Is it a curtain?
Mm.
Is it the back of a
Car.
wardrobe? All of that kind of thing.
Mm.
And I think if you say, well, it's a biscuit tin, it's just, it sounds like it doesn't sound quite as interesting as I think the book is, because in fact in the future a lot of people, there's whole institutes of people who time travel, and they're going back in time
Mm.
to try, through inherited memory, genetic inherited memory and morphic resonance,
Mm.
to try and capture all the data that was lost.
Oh,
So
wow.
they go back to the 19th century to try and find eugenic scientists, and they go back to the 17th century and try and steal Newton's Principia Mathematica, because
Oh,
we've lost a lot. Imagine if we'd lost all of it.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
God.
quite a
Yeah.
funny thought. Think so. They're
Yeah.
all going around on bicycles, and anybody who can make things with their hands
Mm.
is suddenly very useful, and
Oh, yeah.
anybody who can remember how to do stuff and remember stuff.
Mm.
So I think that's a much more interesting proposal than the usual. I got in a TARDIS. It's all
Mm.
impossible, but let's just do
Yeah.
it anyway because it's fun.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
like I like the slightly freakier mind stuff. You know.
Okay. Sounds really interesting. So when did you write it, Nigel? Was it in lockdown or?
I finished it off in lockdown, but I've been doing it for a year before that,
Okay.
and then since this publisher took it on, there's been a few drafts.
Okay.
Because although they're a crowdfunding publisher, they've got proper bona fide editors who who've done fiction. So I was put through the sieve, through the ringer with three edits of just making sure. It's all set in the same area of London near where I live, and one of the editors was saying you can't turn left at the top of Pocock Street, because I said he turned left at the top of and all of that. So hopefully we haven't. I even had a guy, a friend of mine from the Fortean Times, Bob Fisher. He did what he called was a nerd read. How these days they have a sensitivity read to make sure you're not saying anything cancelable. Well, we did a sort of a geek read, because he's very much a sort of fan guy, and he's very Doctor Who. He's science fiction. He knows all of the things. So we had a geek read too, to make sure I hadn't made any geek mistakes.
Oh, that's brilliant. So this is book 1. So how many books are you planning to do?
3. It's meant to be 3. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just putting the second one together now.
Okay, fab. Yeah, I look forward to that. You're also doing a book, I understand, called Making Other Plans. Is that an XTC reference there that I can see?
XTC? No, do they do it as well?
Well, no, because the band got the song called Making Plans for Nigel.
Making Plans for Nigel. No, that'll be another book later on.
So I thought that was kind of where you were linking the Making Other Plans thing.
Funnily enough, Making Other Plans comes from a line from a John Lennon song.
Okay.
The song is Beautiful Boy, that he wrote to his son. And there's a line in it where he sings, "Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans." Which has always stuck with me. And I found out recently, actually, that expression originally appeared in the Reader's Digest in 1957 by a guy called Alan Saunders. And I just like the idea of life is actually the main things that have happened in your life. And when you make other plans, and actually life is what happens. While you're planning something else, the real thing happens. And it's a book of poetry, because I've been writing poetry for years, 50 years. And it's a collection of my poetry. So poetry is what happens when you're making other plans. And that'll be out, I'm not sure when, I think September. We're just finishing up the final, polishing it up now. And I'll be going on tour with a guy called Henry Normal, who I went on tour with in the 90s. I was a performance poet then. And he's invited me on his tour again, which is really nice. We're playing in October and in November all over the country, various venues.
Well, if you're coming anywhere near, I'll have to pop along and see you.
Are we doing Wales? We get as far as Ludlow. That's quite near.
Yeah, it's just past Hereford. Yeah, that's not far from me.
And I think we do Devizes. That's not so far. That's a bit further away, isn't it? But Ludlow, we're definitely doing Ludlow.
Oh yeah, I'll bring Pippa along. She'll love that.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so I noticed the other day, it was a bit of a strange one. I was watching. There's a new show on Sky One. It was called Dreamland, and it was one of those things where I just kind of flicked it on and thought, I'll have a look, because there seemed to be some decent people in it. And then lo and behold, you popped up. So how did you get involved with that?
Oh, just through the normal channels, agents and all of that. But Clelia Mountford, it's a Sharon Horgan's production company. And I worked for them before in a show called There She Goes, about a family with David Tennant and oh dear, I think I'm getting dementia now. Jessica Hines.
Oh right,
it's so annoying that when it makes it look like you don't care about her or something. You forget the name. And in fact, I think she is so brilliant in that. I think it's the most amazing thing she's ever done. And she's playing the mother of it's about a family who have a quite severely disabled child, and it's a true story based on Sean Pye, who wrote it, and it's a sitcom, but it's quite emotionally grueling, but it's very true. We did 2 series of it, and I play Grandpa Gandalf in it, and because this girl recognizes him for some reason, and understands who he is and calls him Gandalf. But apart from that, she's almost it's like she's in another world of her own. She doesn't understand. She doesn't make eye contact. She's and it's a condition that eventually they do get a diagnosis of.
Okay.
But it's quite severe. So it's a very moving story. But
I missed that.
Funny. Very very moving and funny. And so when they got to Dreamland, they must have thought of me for this role of the writing tutor. Which is only a small bit. I think I'm in 2 or 3 episodes. I'm not a sort of regular.
Definitely memorable though. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great series. That I thought it ended a bit shockingly because putting out a spoiler here if you're watching Dreamland, so warning of the spoiler, but it ends, normally they try and either end so they take you back to the beginning, so that they've got room for a second season, or they try and end in a kind of resolving the story, the satisfactory resolving the story, and it ends just the whole thing falls apart, the whole family. All the secrets come out, and it just ends, and you think, oh, is that it? Oh my God, that's awful. Divorce, the thing, the sisters are not going to speak to each other ever again. It's just like, my God, what can they? This is awful. And I mean, maybe they did that deliberately, thinking that'll give us the second season. How do they patch that up? Because it's pretty irrevocable what happens. And so maybe there'll be a second series. I mean, that could be, I suppose, to try and show a family mending. But that first series is really dark. It shows a family breaking, which is quite upsetting. You don't often
No, you don't
see comedy characters ending up in a bad way like that.
No, I can't think of anything like that, apart from the young ones, obviously, they all died on a bus again. So yes, Sharon Hogan, she's making a big noise at the moment, isn't she? She's really talented.
She's brilliant. She's fantastic. I mean, Bad Sisters, I love Bad Sisters. Catastrophe.
Motherland is amazing.
Motherland. Coupling, wasn't her first thing she did Coupling?
Catastrophe, you said, yeah, Coupling, I haven't seen that.
I sent her a script that I'd written. It was about 2 old blokes arguing, and it wasn't quite right for her company because it's very sort of female based. Very female based stories. So they didn't do it, but never mind. I think she's excellent.
Yeah, definitely. She even popped up in that Nicholas Cage film I went to see in the summer, which was a bizarre film. What's it called, Pippa? That Nicholas Cage film? I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically about Nicholas Cage, and he's playing Nicholas Cage in a film, and she cropped up in it. I thought, wow, of all the random things to see, she was in it.
I know the film you mean. I can't even remember if I saw it.
I can't. I got dragged to the cinema this year. So, with regards to other projects, Nigel, have you got anything else in the pipeline at the moment?
Actually, I think what's happened is because of the lockdown, when everything just went quiet, all of us who write were sitting stoking things up, and so this year there seems to be finally a fair amount happening. I've got a play that's opening that I've written with Adrian Edmondson.
Oh wow!
called It's Headed Straight Towards Us.
Okay.
There's a funny play, again, very funny, very moving. It's very touching as well. And it's opening at the Park Theatre in Finsbury Park in London on September the 13th.
Okay.
And we're not in it. We did a small tour of the sort of first draft of it just before the lockdown with us in it, because we couldn't persuade anybody else to be in it. But we've got some proper actors in it now. We've got Samuel West and Rufus Hound.
Oh yeah.
And somebody I didn't know before called Nendi Nura, and she's incredibly funny.
Yeah.
We were.
Is this the Vulcan 7 thing or something else?
It is. It was formerly Vulcan 7.
Right. Okay.
We've done a lot of rewrites and changed it quite a lot. And now it's got the right cast, and and starts rehearsing, and we've got it starts rehearsing in must be August.
Okay.
And then we've got a director who I worked with 20 years ago called Rachel Kavanagh, who I've always wanted to work with again. So I trust her. She's very good. And in at the Park Theatre in Finsbury Park, which is a brilliant sort of place for new work, place for new stuff to go in. So that's amazing, because we thought that was dead, really. We nearly got it into town, and then the lockdown happened. I remember the last reading we had was literally the day before.
Oh wow.
The lockdowns, and so we thought, oh well, that one bites the dust. But with a little bit of determination, rewrites, and a lot of phone calls, managed to get it back up on its feet, and it's happening, and it seems fresh as well. It's great. Yeah, really looking forward to that. And so Adrian and I have started writing another one, because we're thinking, what if it goes well? We quite enjoy after all these years spending time together, writing together, which of course we never did in the past. Even though we were part of the group, I was partnered with Peter Richardson, and Adrian with Rick Mail, and so we sort of slightly feel like last people standing almost. But and writing for theatre plays, I've written 3 or 4 other theatre plays, and I really enjoy that, because you can see other actors when the other actors are good and getting laughs. It's
it's working. Yeah.
Sorry, it beats.
You know that it's it's working. Yeah.
It beats working. I was.
Yeah. So because I was wondering then when you said that you and Adrian were doing that together, I funny enough, I bought tickets last week to go and see him. It's in Cardiff, St David's Hall. He's doing like a book tour. He's got a book coming out.
Yes, he's got his biography, hasn't he?
Yeah. So I think that he's going to be
already doing a tour now for that.
No. I think it's October, I want to say.
Yeah. Same as me. I'll be doing.
Yeah.
We'll probably keep bumping into each other on my Jeremiah Bourne. I'll be doing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm doing Cardiff, but I'm doing. Oh gosh, Cheltenham, Chester, Norfolk, Norwich. I don't know. The usual book reading stuff. Yeah.
Cool. So I look forward to that. So obviously at some point we need to get onto this, and I think now is the time to do it. Can you see that, Nigel?
I can indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be a new release, isn't there, of all
this?
Films? Yes.
This is.
There's been stuff made since that.
I was going to say this is 2005. It says on the back here.
I think they're re-releasing. There's a Blu-ray release at the moment.
Is there?
Yeah, and I don't know which films.
I
think the company is called Severin. It's American. It's an American release of some comic strip films.
Right. So would that be the films or the actual like episodes, because there were a few films when they Eat the Rich being one.
Yeah.
Supergrass.
Is that on there? Are they on
Eat
there?
Eat the Rich is not on here, but Supergrass is, annoyingly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what's on the new release. We just did an event, 3 events at BFI, British Film Institute in London.
Okay.
Peter and myself, and joined by Gary Beadle, Julie T. Wallace, Susie Izzard. Susie was Eddie Izzard. Dawn and Jennifer. Who else joined? And we did, a big sort of Q&A after showing the films. And Peter worked a load of extracts. Like he's done some re-edits where he's showing clips that make the films look really good, because he just takes some really high points of each film.
Yeah.
But it was good. It actually, going back and getting the scissors into things, whether it's writing, whatever it is if you can do it more succinctly, it's usually better.
Yeah. I watched Les Dogs the other day for the first time in ages.
Oh yeah.
It's the one with Kate Bush and obviously right. Alexi's in it a lot.
What did you reckon on that?
After watching it again for the first time in a long time, I don't know, it just kind of, a lot of it doesn't make sense, but I know it's not meant to. But when it finishes, you're kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, do I need to watch it again to try and make sense of it? Do you know what I mean?
I wouldn't if I were you. No. I mean, what was funny was, I don't think it works at all.
Okay.
But what was great was in this trailer clip, we had about half an hour of different clips. Peter used quite a lot from Les Dogs.
Okay.
And made it look brilliant, because he'd obviously cut out all the nonsense.
Yeah.
And he just put in this sequence where suddenly the wedding tables all get pushed over, and all the wedding guests are shooting each other. And Gary Beadle's got a tray of drinks, and he's going among the wedding guests saying, "Would you like another glass?" when they're going over. And that's an incredibly funny sequence. And then they're being photographed, like the bride and her dad, and Alexi's playing the dad, and he comes in, he's still with his guns, he's been shot, he's got blood all over himself, and he just comes in, poses for the photograph, thank you, and then goes back to shooting.
That's the scene with Daniel Peacock when he's licking all over Kate Bush's face, and it's like, oh, yes.
So there's bits of it that are really top drawer stuff, but as a whole, as a film, I think even Peter himself would admit it doesn't quite work.
It almost seems like he just shoehorned Kate Bush in there. It just seems a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
And who wouldn't, exactly. But he was saying he's made about 50 films, and he was saying himself at this event the other week, he was saying, "Oh, we made 50 films, and 10 of them are really okay." So, which I thought was quite modest. I think it's a bit more than 10.
Yeah.
But there are some on the outer periphery that may have wonderful performances in them, or may have good bits in them, but actually don't quite stick together
as a whole.
And therefore, watching them again, you're better off watching the extracts he's cut, I think, some of them.
Okay. So it would be interesting to get your thoughts on one of my favourites, which obviously you star in, which is Fistful of Traveller's Checks.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. All of my friends loved that. We used to just sit around watching it on repeat constantly. So what are your thoughts and memories of Fistful of Traveller's Checks?
Pretty with much affection, that one. I think it's one of the best 3 films we ever made. I think it's really excellent. It's got an actual story. It's an original idea. It's incredibly shot in the locations. And personally, I was working with Peter Richardson since about 1974,
Mm.
5. And when we first started working together, we devised we had a band and a lot of comedy material,
Mhm.
and we played all these characters in a show that we wrote called Rank, and which was about the pop festival, and that show is where Neil comes from.
Mhm.
My character Neil was originally in this show Rank, and he was an appalling folk singer
Mm.
in this pop festival. He was a bad singer who'd come out and said, "I'm going to do some songs for you now. They're both 2 songs. They're both pretty bad, actually. So I'm going to do the worst one first, so the second one won't seem quite so bad." That was his intro, but he wasn't the main character in that show. The main character was Paul,
Mm.
the Mandrax freak.
Got any Mandy's? Yeah.
Yeah, and that character was the kind of glue character in that pop festival. Who he lost his daughter, and you see him wandering through all the different situations, saying, "Anyone seen my daughter, Julie?" You know, he's completely out of his head. And I used to use that character when I got auditions, when I first wanted to try and get work in theatres.
Mm.
You'd have to come along with a modern piece and a classical piece. That's what they told you to do. And I used to use a whole monologue of Paul the junkie, Paul the Mandrax freak, as my audition piece. I never got a job, but out of it. But at least I had fun doing the auditions, and I wasn't ever sort of nervous or felt on the spot, because I thought, no, this is what I do. You know, this is my character. And so I was really pleased, Fistful, to revive this character.
Yeah.
And have him on screen and have him sort of given his full his full weight.
Mm.
And that's just so enjoyable as well. In the dry heat, southern Spain, we filmed it.
Yeah.
In mini Hollywood. And Rick and Peter are brilliant together.
They are.
When they're doing that duel and they start spitting, Peter can spit cool. And Rick spits and he's got it all down his side and everything. They're so good in that.
Mm.
And Keith Allen playing the Hotel Bastardos.
Yeah. Hotel Gay Boy.
And who else is in it? Yeah, well, Dawn and Jennifer obviously playing.
Yeah.
Shona, she's playing the Australian girls.
Aid is in it.
Was Aid's in it playing the sort of Toreador.
Yeah.
Nutter, really. And Chris Malcolm's in it.
Mm.
There's a sequence in that which unfortunately is cut down to size,
okay,
because it overbalanced the film. So not all of it ended up in there. Mm-hmm. But Chris Malcolm was he's died now. He was a Canadian actor producer, and he plays. I don't know if you remember it. They go to a sort of
cafe.
Yeah,
with the steaks.
And my character Paul steals a load of stuff from the counter, and there's a really wacky guy who runs the cafe who's very, very nervous and sort of spacey. That's Chris Malcolm. And there's a sequence that he and I played where that scene is really quite drawn out between us, with lots of sort of deceptive eye looking, like in a Clint Eastwood movie, when he says, "Have you stolen anything?" You know, and saying, "Who wants to know?" And there's an awful lot of sort of an echo of the duel, you know, between this cafe owner and Paul, where they're lying to each other. And I think, you know, at least half of that had to get snipped out.
Okay. That would have been good.
Well, it would have overbalanced the film. You can't sort of suddenly
Don't remember.
delay the film, delay the story just because you like this little scene. You know, you can't do it. I understand, but
Yeah.
no, it's very enjoyable. That's one
Mm.
of the most enjoyable shoots ever, I think.
Mm. Yeah. So so that one was a huge favorite of ours. And then of course, we've got to talk about, these guys.
Yeah,
Just look at that there.
yeah. You've got your thumb on my marrow.
Do you want to see the full length of your marrow?
Go on,
Sure,
show
you've seen
us.
it many times, but there it is.
There we are. Two marrows.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask. This is something I've said to lots of friends, and we all agree. Um, we were all a little bit too young for the whole punk movement. So
Yeah.
our punk movement was the comic strip, the young ones, and everything that you guys did together. That was kind of our punk. So I then got hugely into heavy metal, and Donington was somewhere I
And
went every year.
what went wrong with you?
Donington was like our kind of, it was our biblical place that we went to every year. What was
And
it
then we
like
came and
playing?
ruined it for you.
I didn't see you.
Oh,
I
you
didn't
didn't.
see you. My first Donington
Yeah.
was 88, so it was 2 years after.
Oh, yeah.
So lots of friends of mine who are a little bit older saw you, and every time I see them, they remind me of the fact that they saw Bad News and I didn't. So I just wondered what your memories of playing Donington are.
Very. I think when there's a trauma, you kind of blot it out, don't you? It was pretty traumatic. That there's a shot actually. There's Tommy Vance in his helmet
Yeah.
with everything being thrown at him, and then it was our first gig, and there's a shot of us, and we know the characters, they're comedy characters, you know
Mm.
that we're playing these roles, and you see us coming up the stairs, the shot follows us round, and there's the soundtrack of the audience making a huge
Mm.
load of noise, and it follows us around until the camera's turned around that way,
Mm.
and you realize, no, there are 60,000
Yeah.
people out there, and we are actually going to have to play in front of them. And each time I see that, it gives me like
Mm.
post-traumatic stress. It's I mean that's a very scary moment to think,
I imagine. Yeah.
we can't really play that well, and there's 60,000 people and they're all throwing things at us,
Lots of things. Yeah.
lots of things, bottles of piss,
It's
etc. So the adrenaline was quite that's enough to your body has to take some weeks, I reckon, to even
yeah.
recover from that.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be exciting for real rock musicians. They must get off on that, but at least they have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
They've got the idea that they know the set, that that they can do it at least.
Mm.
And I mean, we'd rehearse, we did do it. We did actually make the album. We were the people playing the instruments. We didn't have, but we weren't professional musicians. And Adrian's probably the only actual competent musician.
Mm.
I mean, I'm a competent musician if I practice a lot, but not of that kind of music. I've got a Bandcamp channel where that's what I did during lockdown. I play my little acoustic guitar and I do kind of sweet psychedelic folk music.
Nice.
Is my bag, and I used to write all those songs when I was 19, and in the lockdown I found there's nothing else to do, so I picked up the guitar and I found I'd remembered all the chords and the playing and all the lyrics.
Wow.
And so I recorded them with a guy called Chris Wade, who's in Leeds. We were just sending each other files across the internet, and he has an outfit called Dodson and Fogg.
Yeah.
And he's made several albums. And we sort of hit an understanding of what the sound should be. And there was my brother Roger as well, who'd been in those days had been writing and playing with me when we were younger. And so I made you can get it on if you go to Bandcamp. It's not heavy metal at all. It's it's like what's it like? It's kind of cross between incredible string band, Nick Drake, John Martin. Do I mean John Martin? Yes, I do.
Yes, yeah.
And sort of psychedelia in it. And it's called 5 Songs Left.
Okay.
After Nick Drake's album 5 Leaves Left. And then there's 4 songs more, because I remembered another 4 of them. And we were in the middle of doing 2 songs forgotten, which I'd forgotten about. But we haven't got them out yet. Because other things came and intervened. And then I started writing other songs as well, more sort of jazz songs. And
yeah, I was going to say, I jumped onto Amazon and I found a few of your more jazzy tracks, and they're pretty cool, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, what were they called? So I wrote them down here. So Love Strikes was one of them.
Which, Love Strikes.
Yeah, that's on Amazon. And City in the Summer as well was on there.
City in the Summer is a good one, because that's about what it was like round here in central London in the lockdown, in a heat wave. The whole town's empty, but you can feel people leaning out their windows ready to blow with sort of anger and having been cooped up for so many weeks. It's a really laid back jazz sound on there. So, and that's quite, what a joy to make. To have the facility to be able to do that, make
definitely
songs as stuff's happening, when you're not really. I mean, I suppose because of the lockdown, you couldn't work anyway, in work and get paid. So you think, well, I might as well do what I fancy then. But it's
it's a bit of a departure from Warriors of Genghis Khan, that's for sure.
It is a bit, yeah. I'm doing one at the moment. I've got some mates. I don't do Facebook, but a guy does a sort of Warriors of Genghis Khan Facebook page for me.
Yes, I'm on it. Yes.
Oh, are you? Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah, Ben. He's called Ben. He runs that, and I discovered he's a bit of a muso himself. And there's the Bad News lost song, called Axogram, which I wrote. And we learnt it once, and we played it to Brian May, our producer. And it was sort of, we thought we ought to drop it, because it's not in the character of Vim Fuego. It's funny, but it's not the same sort of rock. It's more, I don't know the words to describe different genres of heavy metal.
Okay.
But there's the kind of loud guitar. There's what Vim Fuego does, that Warriors of Genghis Khan. And then there's slightly more prog rock type. And Axogram's the one I wrote is a slightly more prog rock thing. It's also much harder to play than it's got a lot more chords in it. And it's got a sort of construction that sounds too competent for bad news. For bad news. So we dropped it. I don't think, maybe we once did it on the tour live and realized we lost the comedy impetus. Even though it's a funny piss take song, it was different. So we dropped it. Anyway, so Ben of the website, the Warriors again, he's been putting it together again. I gave him the chords, and I've done a really bad a guide vocal for it, which I'm hoping we might tempt somebody who can sing it a bit better than that. I used to be able to sing up.
Mhm.
I used to be able to do all that really high screaming.
I've got a question for you about that later. Yeah.
Right. Well, I used to be able to do all that, but obviously as you get older, your voice
Yeah.
goes down a pitch. So I'm singing it down the octave. But anyway, we're working towards releasing
Wow.
finally Axigram.
If you need if Spider's not available, I'm happy to jump on the drums.
No, Ben's got a mate whose name I've forgotten, who's also the engineer.
And he's a
the
drummer.
They've
Okay.
already done the guiding. Right.
Okay.
Oh well, watch out for it because it'll be
Yeah.
on the Warriors of Genghis Khan website.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
And I haven't heard back from them for a while, and then I'm going to
Okay.
try and persuade Adrian to
Mm.
put a lead guitar break in it.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. He doesn't like going back over
Okay.
things in the past. He's moving on always forward. He hates
Yeah.
talking about young ones. He hates talking
Does
about
he?
bad news. Everybody's got their own taste. So, but it would be great if I could persuade him. I'll try flattery.
Yeah.
That usually works. You're the only guitarist who could possibly do this. But it'd be great, wouldn't it? To get a real Wim Fuego guitar solo break.
Absolutely.
It would be great. I'd love that.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to bad news then, who was there any particular band that kind of influenced it? Because I know we talk about Spinal Tap, who came a little bit later. So you guys did it first.
Yeah,
I know that.
we were there first.
Yeah. But they went out for a week on the road, believe it or not, with Saxon. I didn't know if you were aware of that, but they went out with, so Harry Shearer actually spent a week on Saxon's tour bus, and Saxon were a lot of the inspiration for some of the things that went into the film.
Oh, right. No, I don't think we needed. I don't think we need. I mean, Adrian had always been in college bands doing that, so he based it on his own experiences because he wrote the script of the Bad News films. And Peter and I had been on tour with our comedy show Rank, supporting bands like AC/DC, Motorhead, and when we were the Outer Limits, we'd supported Dex's Midnight Runners. I'd supported Marillion, and who else? Madness once, even. So we were quite sort of connected up to the music world. But musically, we actually supported Iron Maiden. That was the nearest to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
At Hammersmith, and that was Bad News doing it. We did a couple of gigs with Iron Maiden.
Did you do a UK tour as well?
No, we didn't go on the tour. Oh, we did a tour. We did a tour of universities and colleges and ended up at Hammersmith. What was Hammersmith Odeon now is God knows what it's called now.
Apollo.
Apollo. Hammersmith. Yeah.
Ah, cool. So no one in particular influenced the band. So what was it like then working with, obviously with Brian May in the studio, and there's lots of pictures floating around of you guys at the time with Jimmy Page and all sorts of luminaries. Just wondering how that felt at the time.
Well, with Brian in the studio, it was great because he was so enthusiastic. He just left the microphones on. So we stayed in character. So the second album is and the in-between bits on that album are all improvised, just improvised us being a character shouting at each other or putting each other down or whatever. So the comedy in the album is really genuine. And so's the music, really. I mean, that's us playing it. And we wrote it. I think it was expensive because we were in a studio that Brian would have considered. I mean, our catering bill, I think, came to more than our normal, all that stuff about the catering, you didn't realize, we're paying for that out of our advance. Right, I see. I think it cost a lot. especially working with sort of amateurs like us.
Did you actually
You
drink
know,
100 pints of lager in the studio?
No, we didn't drink. I don't think we drank any lager in the studio. There was a cook there, and we used to eat, fantastic meals
Mm.
in the studio. But yeah, so it was a pretty amazing time, actually.
Mm.
I think you're taking the piss, but you've got Brian May producing
Yeah.
you the piss. I mean, that's insane, isn't it, really?
Mm. Mm. And it still sounds great today, I listen to it regularly and it's still amazing. So with regards to Den, what's your favorite moment of Den then? What's your favorite thing that Den did?
Again, it's one of the scenes that had to bite the dust. There's a scene where he's feeding, because he's got a woman who's got all these kids, and he's ended up looking after all the kids, and he's making them all breakfast. And I think we had to cut it in the end because it overbalanced it. But it was such a fun scene. He's got all these little kids, like 5 of them around the table. He's making sausages and he's doing bacon and eggs for them. And then he's talking about the scene when he talks about his finger.
Yeah.
Who's this finger? That
Yeah.
finger. But I don't think much of that ended up in the actual final cut of the film.
No, that's not there, is it? No. Okay.
And I suppose the one I've seen most is when you first see him. He opens the door and says, "Have we got it yet?" He can't clock.
Yeah.
You've got to act. Oh, hello. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's funny. I've seen that lots of times.
Yeah, brilliant. So next then, I know time's getting on, Nigel, so I'll be as quick as I can.
It says 5 minutes left of your meeting at the top.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Can we ignore that?
Yeah, let's just keep going. As long as you're happy.
Yeah, where are we? 3:30. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. Can we have a little chat about this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this came out tail end of last year. So obviously this is the 40th anniversary Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, I did some commentary on that, didn't I?
Yes. So I was wondering if you were approached to do that, but did you have anything else to do with the release, or was it just basically done out of your hands?
Originally we were doing it for Alexi Sales podcast.
Right.
And he was looking after that. But then when the BBC wanted to do it, I think they kind of either bought him out or it suddenly escalated into that product you've just said. So no, I just turned up one day with Alexi and Lisa. The commentary I'm doing is with Alexi and Lisa, which was such fun to see. I mean, I don't sit around watching the young ones.
No.
Over the last 40 years, I haven't really done that.
No.
So to suddenly see it again and have all these details, our comments, we're saying, was that bloke still alive? And oh, apologies if he is, because all the old the names of all the people who you were working with. It's so nice to see them all. Mark Arden, Steve Frost, Lee Corns, Helen Lederer, all of the sort of massive casts we had. I'd forgotten how many of the whole gang of the Comedy Store, and Peter Weir, Jim Barclay. That it was like everybody who was in the Comedy Store sort of suddenly you see their faces appearing, and none of those people had been or would normally have been on television. Tony Allen, was quite a mishmash of stuff, which is one I really enjoyed looking at it again.
And another thing for me and a lot of other people was the music aspect of the young ones. Yeah. So obviously Motorhead being on there for me was like, whoa, Motorhead are on the telly. Yeah. So that was amazing. So I just wondered, did you guys have anything to do with who chose the bands and artists that came on, or was that done externally?
I think there was a sort of consensus about who would be okay and who would, who we would really like to have on and who we wouldn't. But on the whole, it would be a decision of Paul Jackson's. He used to be the producer of Top of the Pops. That's where we met him. And he was the one who knew how to book bands. I think they're a funny mix, though, aren't they? Because Rip, Rig and Panic and Madness.
Yeah.
One huge mega band, and Rip, Rig and Panic, and were they called Level 42? No, they weren't called Level 42.
9 Below Zero.
9 Below Zero. Yeah. What happened to them? I mean, they were great. Sort of mod band, weren't they?
They're still going, actually.
Are they really? I thought they were excellent. Very strange. Mitch, we had the Damned.
Yeah.
I knew them because I can't remember why I knew them. Can't remember why I knew the Damned. Anyway, I did. Yeah. No, it was pretty cool having all the bands in.
Yeah, definitely. There's a cool story because I've got to work. I do a bit of drum teching. I've got to work with Phil Campbell from Motorhead. He's got another band now.
Oh, right.
They call Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. It's his boys that play in the band with him. And that guitar that he played on the Young Ones, Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, that was his introduction to Motorhead, was watching the Young Ones because it was showed on MTV apparently in America.
Oh, yeah.
And
yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was shown on MTV for years on a Sunday night, I think.
And that guitar, Dave Grohl now owns it.
Wow.
Yeah. So he bought it from Phil Campbell. So he's got that guitar. That's how much of an impact it had on him.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to have a little chat about, so we've mentioned the music. So does it seem like 40 years ago to you? Because it's 41 years now, obviously, we're going into the next year. Does it seem that long ago, Nigel?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't, although time passes quickly and more quickly as you get older, thinking back, that really does seem like a whole different century. It was a whole different century.
Yeah.
But it does, yeah. I mean, it's such different people then, and also the atmosphere around the media, the politics, that was very different then. Before these.
Yes, way before those, yeah.
That's been the big change that's happened in everybody's life. All our data being collected and used by 3 or 4 individuals in America. That's a major change. I mean, in the young ones, it seems quite cute, doesn't it? That they're going, oh, have we got a video?
Yeah.
And that was like so exciting. A big piece of plastic that size that you had to put in the machine. It might mangle it, and then you could actually see a program when it wasn't being broadcast. And that was, you thought, God, we're cutting edge here.
It's amazing.
So it really does seem a long time ago, yeah, I think.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, it was a very, very physical series. Did you get any injuries at all? I've read somewhere about the giant chocolate eclair causing some problems.
Yeah, I went to the osteopath after that. Because of being tall, I took the weight of the chocolate eclair on my poor little neck. But there were injuries and things. I mean, but we were very lucky that there were so few, come to think of it. Especially the scene where Rick and Aid, they're arguing in the bedroom upstairs, and then the bed falls through and lands on the floor. And they're still arguing. That was, thinking back, that was incredibly dangerous because they literally just suspended a plank of wood, as it were, with them on it, and dropped it onto the floor. And you wouldn't be allowed to do that nowadays.
No. Definitely not.
Yeah.
So when
It
it
was
ended,
quite.
it obviously ended on a high, didn't it? Back in was it 84, the second series? Surely there were plans to make a third at some point.
I don't think so. I think Lisa and Rick and Ben Elton
Mm,
were fairly adamant that they didn't want to go beyond the two series. Personally, I'd have uh, liked to have gone to a third series, but I can understand you don't want to. There was a big element of surprise,
mm,
and that's obviously gone. And you don't want it to become too, whatever the word is, sappy, like
mm, mm.
American series. Anything that extends can get past its sell-by date.
Yeah.
And probably they were just afraid of me and, that it would turn into my show. That was probably what it was all about.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm joking there. You're
I
meant
know.
to laugh a little bit.
But you did have an album out. They didn't have an album out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
See, you were very popular. You were on top of the pops and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Doesn't mean it would have been any good in a third series.
That's the album I'm talking about. There it is.
Yeah. Oh, you got it on the CD. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, got it.
That was
Yeah,
re-released a few years
it
ago.
was. Yeah, and there's loads of like bonus tracks and stuff on here.
Yeah.
But while I'm holding this up, I need to ask you about Lentil Nightmare,
Ah, yeah.
and I need to ask you. You kind of alluded to it earlier. Is that you with the high pitch
That's me,
vocals?
definitely. Yeah.
Wow, I was never sure.
No, that's definitely me. Up there, yeah. And I do it as well a bit on Alexis pop-up toasters. Alexis
Oh yeah,
Midnight Runners pop-up toasters.
yeah.
There's a sort of impersonation of Kevin Rowland I do.
Mm.
You're always searching for something. That sort of voice.
That's quite good.
Because I used to be I still am. I mean, I was a sort of a singer I was doing.
Mm.
At the time I was doing sessions and I was understudying David Essex before the Comedy Store and stuff. So I still like a sing, but it at the time I was quite, what do you call it, trained up. I was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
up for any singing going.
Mm.
Yeah.
Listening to those tracks earlier, you've still got a good voice, and I'm not just being a Crawley bumlick.
Right. Well, thank you. But I've sort of, it's gone mellow now, whereas I
Yeah.
used to put some balls into it.
Mm. And please tell me that Dennis played guitar on Lentil Nightmare.
No, I don't think he did. Do you know,
Was he
if you
busy?
look at he was too busy. I don't think he's good enough either. If you look at the credits on
Yeah.
that album,
Mm.
it's produced by Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart, yeah.
Not Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics, Dave Stewart and Barbara Gaskin. But he was part of the Canterbury scene originally, with a band whose name I've forgotten. Was it Hatfield and the North? I can't remember. I'm so bad with. I'm so music fanish about remembering names of the musicians and the albums and all that. It doesn't. I haven't got enough room in my brain anymore.
No.
But if you look on the credits of that album, there are. We had an amazing, famous, now deceased heavy metal drummer on Lentil Nightmare, a proper from some famous band. We had
Okay.
bass players, 2 or 3 bass players, because Dave could call them in from all the Canterbury scenes and from also. So the musicians we had were top of the range musos. And we had Jacko Jaksic on it, who's now the lead singer and lead guitarist of King Crimson. And a very funny man as well, actually. We had, the trouble is I can't remember all the names. Apologies to all these
No.
first grade musicians. But there's no way Dave would have let me play an instrument on that, because the actual production on it is really good, really good.
It is, yeah.
I mean, if you listen to something like that version of Hurdy-Gurdy Man,
Mm.
Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing composition. It's an amazing
Mm.
piece of arrangement and
Yeah.
orchestration and everything on it.
Mm.
And then Neil comes in very high up,
Yeah.
singing it. But even that silly sort of comedy voice sounds just right. It's yeah. I mean the production values on that album go far beyond what a normal comedy album would do. It's really beautifully done musically.
Mm. So what was the Top of the Pops experience like with Hole in My Shoe?
Oh, it was good. They used to do a thing where they just brought the camera around. You'd mime.
Mm.
Quite often the acts would mime in those days. And I said, I can't mime because some of it's like comedy joke, it's me talking.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had, and I said, I need the camera on me here because I'm going to do a joke. So I wrote a camera script out for them because I thought, you know, they just bring the camera around and then they brought the other camera around because it's just pop music sort of is kind of sold by the yard. But with Hole in My Shoe, there were specific points where there was going to be a joke or there was going to be a routine or there was going to be something that they had to catch. So I got a bit, what's the word, you know, like I can get, you know, a bit stroppy, a bit egotistical, whatever, the vain about it all.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the end, it was worth it. It was good fun. And the second time we had a big smoke machine.
Yeah.
And the first time it was just Neil falling over and knocking over all the set. You know, that's really good fun. I mean, imagine all your childhood, the only kind of access to any kind of modern music has been Top of the Pops on BBC.
Yeah.
You know, that's you like, and you always put it down. You always said, "Oh, it's terrible," but you loved it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you find through your efforts at sort of subversion, not at your proper efforts at songwriting or anything like that. You suddenly find you're on Top of the Pops to take the piss, and so it's wonderful. It was what a joy, really.
Yeah, you're right in what you say about Top of the Pops being a be all and end all. Really, I vividly remember every Thursday waiting for it. You know, just waiting for that half an hour.
Mind you, you're probably too young. Did you ever see Ready Steady Go? There was Ready Steady Go.
I'm aware of it, but I never saw it. No.
And then there was the one with Whispering Bob Harris. What was that? That late?
Oh, the Old Grey Whistle Test.
The Old Grey Whistle Test. So there were other programs, but as a young kid, you wouldn't have, you know.
No.
Top of the Pops.
Yeah, definitely. So something else I came across, which was something completely forgotten about, was Rollover Beethoven. Can you remember much about that? Yeah. I remember seeing it as a kid, and I thought, wow, I'd completely gone out of my memory bank completely. Yeah. I'd completely forgotten about that series. So was it just one series of that, Nigel? Or
it was one series. Then they filmed a second series and put it together and put it out as one series.
Right.
Of 13 episodes or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was really unfortunate, the timing of it for all concerned, really, because it was a completely different role from Neil and all the comedy roles.
Yeah.
It was a comedy, but of a much more mainstream kind of like The Good Life, the very thing we were taking the piss out of.
Yeah.
About this rock star bass player who was getting piano lessons. He'd gone to live in the country and was getting piano lessons from a very proper lady played by Lisa Goddard.
Yeah.
And they have a romance. And it was really enjoyable to make. I love Lawrence and Morris, Marks and Ground, who wrote it.
Yeah.
But it was unfortunate because the timing of it all came at the same time. As the Young Ones hit, the comic strip hit, and then Rollover Beethoven was there. And there was only so much you can actually do. At one point, I was on tour with the Young Ones in the evenings all over the country, and in the daytimes recording rollover Beethoven in the studio in Elstree, then going back to Birmingham, then coming back to Elstree. And there's, in the end, to record the second series, they had to write my character out.
Right.
Which was, I just couldn't afford the energy or the time to do everything. And it's a great shame, because I think if it could have been rescheduled, if it could have been somehow done, it was it's quite a nice series in that mainstream in that mainstream type of show, but it wasn't the new wave of comedy by a long way.
It was very much a traditional sitcom, wasn't it?
Yeah, very, very traditional, which and really enjoyable to make. Such nice character, nice people. Just you can't do everything at once, and so something had to give.
Yeah. So do you think moving on from that?
Sorry.
Do you think moving on from that the Filthy Rich and Cat Flap kind of fell to that kind of thing as well, because there was just oversaturation a little bit?
No, I think that that was a different reason. That was because they were still writing. Ben was still writing. By the time we got to Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, Ben had about 5 other opportunities. Al fresco. He was
Blackadder.
He would have been very much in demand.
Yeah.
And Adrian and Rick were probably from that point on plotting to do Bottom. They were thinking, well, why do we need Ben? Why do we need Nige? We can do our own thing, which is what we're doing anyway with Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. We'll just go on with that. We don't need all this extra around us just because of the young ones.
Because Eddie is a very similar character, isn't he? From Cat Flap to Bottom, it's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what they were developing it through that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd like to have done more of that, because Filthy Ralph was really good fun to do. And I sort of had an input with all the Polari language he uses with Ben Elton. It's a sort of character I helped develop, as it were. So I'd have liked to carry on with it, but I understand what was going on. And Ben was busy. They wanted to do their own thing, and so I sort of fell through the middle there. That's when it would have been great if Rollover Beethoven had then come then. That would have suited just right. It was just the timing, really,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Nigel, I know time's getting on.
Lovely.
So I've got a few questions from some of the guys from the website. I'll ask them quickly. So Dom, who's kind of in charge of RPM Online, he wants to know that, well, we kind of touched on it a little bit with the memories of playing Donington, but did you actually get hit in the head with anything? And were you injured?
Not at Donington, but I did at the Marquee later. A couple of years later, I got a mug in my
mug.
God, yeah,
what the hell had a mug?
Like one of those heavy perspex mugs.
Oh, wow.
And it was thrown and it cut me here, and I went to the hospital, had it all stitched up, and then we realized they'd stitched a shard of sharp perspex inside.
My God.
And I had to go and get it cut open and taken out, and that was a bit unpleasant.
See, that sounds really painful.
Yeah, apart from that, on the gigs, we pissed. You'd get hit by piss or spit or sheep's livers and stuff like that.
Sheep's livers. Okay, so here's another one with regards to Den. Did Den ever get the other bloody sausage? This is from Johnny Haywood.
Of course he didn't. It's those rip-off service stations.
Yeah, don't come here. Okay, and last one from Zoot. Who is Den's biggest guitar influence? Who inspired Den to pick up the guitar?
Oh. Oh, I don't know, you know, I haven't done enough of my character research because I actually don't know the answer to that, because the whole heavy metal thing
Yeah.
is Adrian's bag,
Yes.
Adrian Edmondson's bag, and I was hired in to play that character.
So you didn't even have to think about it.
Actually playing rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
And doing a bass line on rhythm guitar. And actually my chords that I know are too jazzy. So actually it's a cheat. There's a secret reveal that I wasn't actually method acting. I was just acting.
Okay, so Pippa wants to ask you a question now. She's kind of she's been sitting here waiting to get in. Here she is.
Oh, hello, Pippa. You've been hiding there.
So if I move over a little bit, she can get in. There we go, Pip. So now you can ask your question, which you've been waiting for.
Yeah, so mine's going back to the young ones. So my favourite scene is kind of the whole darling fascist bully boy letter, the letter to the bank manager.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've just always wondered where the term boom shankers come from. Did it come from you, or was it the writers? Where did it originate?
It's an actual phrase that I travelled across Asia. You know, in the opening sequence of The Young Ones, there's Neil asleep like that, and it says African and Asian Studies behind him. I studied African and Asian Studies at Sussex University, but I dropped out, and I went overland to Asia, to India, and there was a lot of old guys at the Ganges and all that with massive chillums, is what they're called. They're sort of pipes that are this smoking ganja. That big mounts, like nowadays you might see that like Bob Marley or Rasta, that kind of amount of smoke. But this was in India, and they would say Bomshanka. And I don't know what it means. But and a load of hippies in Twickenham as well actually would say, "Oh, Bomshanka, man." People who'd been to India would all come back and say, "Oh, Bomshanka," like meaning that's a real blast, is what they thought it meant. I've no idea. It's probably sacrilegious to some religious people, for all I know nowadays. I don't know. But so I brought that phrase in, to the young ones.
Interesting, cool.
Brilliant, thanks, Nigel. Right, so on behalf of all of us here, Nigel at RPM Online, I've taken up way too much of your time, but thanks
very much.
No problem. Thank you so much. And obviously the book will be out in July, the 6th of July. I've got here, is that correct? 6th of July?
5th, 6th, can't remember which.
Okay, and obviously
we'll Hive. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, we'll put a link up in the YouTube channel so everybody can jump on that, Nigel. And
excellent. Kenny, it's Kenny, isn't it?
It is Kenny, yeah.
Because your email says Lee.
Yes, well, my real name is Lee, but my surname is Kendrick, so everybody's called me Kenny for all of my life.
Kendrick, right?
Okay. Yeah, you've got it.
Okay, well, love and peace.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nigel.
Okay, cheers.
Bye now. Bye.